it's like he's trying to describe something, and it's not really possible in the limited language we use. I mean,
right.
I like how he gives you a certain feeling that the experience that you're having matters, and it doesn't really matter what the average opinion of the Dutch citizen is. I mean, it's also important how you view the world, because it's unique. Nobody has your viewpoint. You're the only one that has your viewpoint. So it should always count. And that's why this particular bit, who kind of says that not every opinion is worth looking at,
Yeah.
He was kind of getting at that, and I'm not so, I don't like that.
I didn't think you would like that, because he's basically telling us, you should discount some opinions. In the chat room, of course, is Andrew, my favorite Australian, Zodiac 12, and Barco. Barco is saying some interesting thing about McKenna right now. He's saying that maybe McKenna was actually being not too deliberate and keeping things vague just to challenge the listener. Now, that would be a noble enough cause. But you take a McKenna and line him up next to a Socrates, and Socrates, while equally open-minded, has a very specific path that he falls down when he gets into his line of questioning and understanding. And really, I think Socrates, summed up, could be a man that was always on the hunt for clarity. He wanted you to know your beliefs inside and out, upside down, backwards, forwards, in 10 languages. But he wanted you to believe the beliefs because there were good reasons to believe your beliefs. Whereas McKenna, to me, seems to be, he takes any topic out there that's popular and questions it, which is something Chris Hitchens did very well. And I think that's why Chris Hitchens was so confused on the political scale. He didn't want to belong to any one political party. I mean, he was ultra-left liberal. Then he became a supporter of the Bush administration. I mean, that's confusing right there. But another thing Barco said about him is that McKenna deliberately undermines his own points over and over to challenge the listener. And he's trying to teach you how to think, not what to think. And the modern day version of this, I mean, we're not far past McKenna's days, but to me it's critical thinking. I have yet to find a person that has good arguments against the basic concepts of critical thinking like you'd find on criticalthinking.org. It's a good way to process information, but then once you get your solid information, you still have to come to opinions about it. And that's hard to do if you don't know all of the details about a given thing. And then you factor in your DNA and the religion you were brought up in and the culture you were brought up in and the racism or sexism you may have experienced. All these things will shape the way you view the world. And all of these individuals stand up to proclaim their beliefs, and they don't match up. So the observer is going, okay, who's right here? And McKenna's saying not everybody's right just because they all have equal say. But it's very confusing to me, I'll be honest with you. We'll get RD's closing thoughts on this, and then we'll play the water clip, go straight to the clip.
Well, I mean, that is why I was saying that this is like the perfect introduction for you. It's like it was picked out by YouTube to kind of let you put your toe in the McKenna water, so to speak. Yeah, because I'm sure there's clips out there that would have pushed you away immediately. And I think McKenna is saying that regardless of all these logic and thinking rules you can follow, that it's okay to say that you don't know. You don't have to have the answer to all the question. It's okay if it's an open end. And that's something that I like, because I like to think outside the box, and I like to be what Stabby calls me, the philosophical dead end. I enjoy being there. I'm very comfortable with not having these answers. And I mean, if you go with science, it's more like McKenna has this speech that talks about something being true enough, and which kind of suggests that the best thing out there would be, I mean, the best thing out there can still be shitty, you know? So if something is not 100% true, And you might not want to go all in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's just the thing I believe in, that as long as something is not 100% proven, which I think nothing can, why would you build your world around this idea?
Andrew says, maybe I have always been a lone wolf, but I don't run with the pack. That's just not my way, which is also the way I think. But lone wolves are a threat to any conventional thinking. The lone wolves can also be described as what you just said, thinking outside the box. And I think what it is I think the problem I'm having with McKenna is that I can't get a grasp on what he really believes just by using his words. Now, I've only listened to cumulatively maybe 5 hours of his talks, but the only reason I'm still interested in him is because you seem to be pretty into him, and it got me curious.
The thing you're looking for is, maybe I'm using my own words now, but what you seem to be looking for is, what is this guy selling? And I'm so happy that I don't get the feeling with this guy that he's trying to sell me something, you know? Yeah. So that's exactly what I find attractive.
Well, I'm not really thinking that he's selling something. Like almost everybody's trying to sell, at the very least, a method of thought. But I don't get that feeling with him either, but very few famous philosophers have I gotten the feeling that they were trying to convert me from something. It always felt like they were saying, this is my painting of what life and meaning is. Would you like to look at it? That's what very few philosophers that got famous were saying, this is what you must believe. That's religion does that. Philosophy pokes around.
Yeah, that's true. Look at what Barco's saying.
So RD is trying to sell McKenna by not selling him. Well, he's done an effective job because he didn't push McKenna on me, but the name kept coming up, and familiarity did not breed contempt in this case. I wanted to know something about him. So what we'll do next, RD, is we'll play this water thing, and then we'll talk about that. Does that sound good?
Yeah. It gives me the time to take a piss and...
Yep. Okay, you can just, if you want, just hang up, since this is going to be like 20 minutes, and then I'll call you back right after the clip.
Yeah, cool.
All right, bro, I'll get this started. You guys are going to hear something called This Is Water, full version, David Foster Wallace, commencement speech. Let's get to it and see if this is as great as everybody keeps saying it is.
Perspiring, I'd invite you to go ahead, because I'm sure going to. In fact, I'm going to get a hanky right here. Greetings, thanks, and congratulations to Kenyon's graduating class of 2005. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" This is a standard requirement of U.S. commencement speeches, the deployment of didactic little parable-ish stories. The story thing turns out to be one of the better, less bullshitty conventions of the genre. But if you're worried that I plan to present myself here as the wise older fish explaining what water is to you younger fish, please don't be. I am not the wise old fish. The point of the fish story is merely that the most obvious, important realities are often the ones that are hardest to see and talk about. Stated as an English sentence, of course, this is just a banal platitude. But the fact is that in the day-to-day trenches of adult existence, banal platitudes can have a life or death importance. Or so I wish to suggest to you on this dry and lovely morning. Of course, the main requirement of speeches like this is that I'm supposed to talk about your liberal arts education's meaning, to try to explain why the degree you're about to receive has actual human value instead of just a material payoff. So let's talk about the single most pervasive cliche in the commencement speech genre, which is that a liberal arts education is not so much about filling you up with knowledge as it is about, quote, teaching you how to think. If you're like me as a student, you've never liked hearing this, and you tend to feel a bit insulted by the claim that you've needed anybody to teach you how to think, since the fact that you even got admitted to a college this good seems like proof that you already know how to think. But I'm going to posit to you that the liberal arts cliche turns out not to be insulting at all. because the really significant education in thinking that we're supposed to get in a place like this isn't really about the capacity to think, but rather about the choice of what to think about. If your total freedom of choice regarding what to think about seems too obvious to waste time discussing, I'd ask you to think about fish and water and to bracket for just a few minutes your skepticism about the value of the totally obvious. Here's another didactic little story. There are these two guys sitting together in a bar in the remote Alaskan wilderness. One of the guys is religious, the other's an atheist, and the two are arguing about the existence of God with that special intensity that comes after about the fourth beer. And the atheist says, look, it's not like I don't have actual reasons for not believing in God. It's not like I haven't ever experimented with the whole God and prayer thing. Just last month I got caught away from camp in that terrible blizzard, and I was totally lost, and I couldn't see a thing, and it was 50 below. And so I tried it. I fell to my knees in the snow and cried out, oh God, if there is a God, I'm lost in this blizzard and I'm going to die if you don't help me. And now, in the bar, the religious guy looks at the atheist all puzzled. Well, then you must believe now, he says. After all, here you are, alive. The atheist just rolls his eyes. No, man, all that was a couple Eskimos happened to come wandering by and they showed me the way back to camp. It's easy to run this story through a kind of standard liberal arts analysis. The exact same experience can mean two totally different things to two different people, given those people's two different belief templates and two different ways of constructing meaning from experience. Because we prize tolerance and diversity of belief, nowhere in our liberal arts analysis do we want to claim that one guy's interpretation is true and the other guy's is false or bad. Which is fine, except we also never end up talking about just where these individual templates and beliefs come from. Meaning where they come from inside the two guys. As if a person's most basic orientation toward the world and the meaning of his experience were somehow just hardwired, like height or shoe size, or automatically absorbed from the culture, like language. As if how we construct meaning were not actually a matter of personal, intentional choice. Plus there's the matter of arrogance. The non-religious guy is so totally certain in his dismissal of the possibility that the passing Eskimos had anything to do with his prayer for help. True, there are plenty of religious people who seem arrogantly certain of their own interpretations too. They're probably even more repulsive than atheists, at least to most of us. But religious dogmatist's problem is exactly the same as the story's unbeliever. Blind certainty. A close-mindedness that amounts to an imprisonment so total that the prisoner doesn't even know he's locked up. The point here is that I think this is one part of what teaching me how to think is really supposed to mean. To be just a little less arrogant. To have just a little critical awareness about myself and my certainties. Because a huge percentage of the stuff that I tend to be automatically certain of is, it turns out, totally wrong and deluded. I have learned this the hard way, as I predict you graduates will too. Here is just one example of the total wrongness of something I tend to be automatically sure of. Everything in my own immediate experience supports my deep belief that I am the absolute center of the universe. The realest, most vivid and important person in existence. We rarely talk about this sort of natural basic self-centeredness because it's so socially repulsive. But it's pretty much the same for all of us. It is our default setting, hardwired into our boards at birth. Think about it. There is no experience you have had that you are not at the absolute center of. The world as you experience it is there in front of you, or behind you, to the left or right of you, on your TV or your monitor, and so on. Other people's thoughts and feelings have to be communicated to you somehow, but your own are so immediate, urgent, real. Please don't worry that I'm getting ready to lecture you about compassion or other directedness or all the so-called virtues. This is not a matter of virtue. It's a matter of my choosing to do the work of somehow altering or getting free of my natural, hardwired default setting, which is to be deeply and literally self-centered, and to see and interpret everything through this lens of self. People who can adjust their natural default setting this way are often described as being well adjusted. which I suggest to you is not an accident.